That was so important. God. Okay, so for that section that I just covered but didn't record, I'm gonna have to redo that. Um, yeah, I'll probably do it. I'll probably do it later today. Yeah, no, I'll pull up the Gurchi stuff. What do you think? Recording in progress, so an echo of the awareness not being present in dreams. Yeah, so I will reproduce that for everybody. Okay, so now we're on page, let's see. The bardo of dreaming in natural liberation is actually called the natural liberation of confusion. So it designates the dream state as a state of confusion, which is accurate. And this is what occurs in the bardo as well. So this is page 146, beginning with the pure illusory body. Like usual, there's so many different practices that are emphasized in each of the bardo sections. Like in the first bardo, the bardo of the living, which was primarily about um, identifying awareness, realizing the nature of mind, non-duality. There were there's several exercises that were leading up to that, and that were emphasized in that for getting clear on the nature of mind. Likewise, in this section on dreaming, there's lots of different exercises and practices. So the one that's important is here, this section called the pure illusory body. So I'll begin. If we can gain an actual realization of the lack of true existence, excuse me, of phenomena, that's excellent. But at the very least, we should gain some understanding of the lack of substantiality of phenomena. One way to do this is with meditation on your body and other phenomena as having an illusory quality, like being in a dream. While phenomena are no more substantial than reflections in a mirror, we respond to them by grasping onto that which is non-existent as being existent. Upon that basis, there arise attachment and hatred. These are our principal responses to the phenomena of our experienced world. And these two responses of attachment and hatred give rise to the whole array of the five poisons. By succumbing to these five poisons, we continue wandering in the various six realms of existence. What is the point or the significance of these various analogies? It is to slow us down so that we can recognize the nature of our own existence and of our activities as being like an echo or an illusion. In short, non-virtue is the cause of the perpetuation of cyclic existence. So by taking the objects in experience to be those objects and to be real, we grasp them, attempt to keep them, hold on to them, and thereby we suffer. So the six realms is referring to the hell realm, the ghost realm, the animal realm, the human realm, the God realm, and the formless realm. Formless realms. So yeah, pretty sure that was six. Hopefully that was six. And 5 poisons, I'm not sure what the 5 poisons are. Usually there's just 3. Just ignorance, I believe ignorance, sensual craving, and hatred or anger. But the 5 is probably likely in the ballpark of those. Those are generally regarded as the main core poisons. Focusing on the illusory nature of phenomena, seeing them as being dream-like, is akin to the practice and the stage of generation. So generation is referring to the tantric practice of visualizing yourself as a deity. In tantric Buddhism, there's 2 stages in this regard. It's called generation stage yoga, completion stage yoga. So generation stage yoga is the visualization of the deity and the dimension of the deity, which is called the mandala. And the completion stage yoga is referring to a set of practices that have to deal with the subtle body. So 6 yogas of Naropa, visualizing the channels, the Tumo, fire, these are all completion stage yogas. Akin to practice in the stage of generation in which you visualize or imagine yourself as any of the chosen deities, such as Vajrasattva, Avalokiteshvara, Padmasambhava, Shakyamuni, or any other form of the Buddha. In such practice, you imagine yourself as living in a pure realm of primordial wisdom. And in that pure realm, you imagine a palace that is inhabited by various male and female deities, all of them pure in nature and having an illusion-like existence. In this practice, you regard both yourself and others as being completely pure and having no substantial existence. And you view all phenomena, animate and inanimate, as appearing and yet not being truly existent. That's the general nature of the stage of generation practice. What is the point of this practice? Such training sows the seeds for the accomplishment of omniscience for the sake of oneself and others. So, an example of a generation stage yoga that you're able to do without a special transmission from a lama, for example, is generation stage yoga using Padmasambhava. The names that we just mentioned, actually, they're all deities, or they're all deities that you're able to do generation stage yoga without a specific and special transmission for. What is a transmission? A transmission, in this case, or an empowerment, basically through the lineage, the permission to do that practice is passed down, and that permission, this is never actually said. Like, what I'm about to say and explain is not something that is told to people. But when you get an empowerment, like let's say it's for the medicine Buddha, or it's for some even Hindu deity practice, when that empowerment is read in Tibetan or in Sanskrit or whatever, an example also is even TM meditation. When you do TM, you receive a mantra. And when you do an empowerment, you also receive a mantra. When you receive a mantra in an empowerment, the lineage installs specific seeds inside of your consciousness and architecture, your mind-body architecture. You get, it's an actual process of installation. That installation of non-physical formations, which are actually pieces of the heart essence of the deity, those are placed into the practitioner in the empowerment. That gives you the permission and the actual link to the deity and to the lineages, to the specific lineage that is connected to that practice. Now you have permission to do the practice. with the permission to do the practice and with the seeds installed, you're able to actually reap the fruits of that practice. And of course, this is just applying to empowerments that require transmission. So for example, Chud, the practice of severance from Machig Lubdrun, that requires an empowerment. Why? When you receive the empowerment, you receive the architecture that connects you to Machig and to that lineage. The beings that I'm mentioning right here, the beings that I'm mentioning here, Avalokiteshvara, Padmasambhava, Vajrasattva, Buddha, these do not require an empowerment. They're not necessarily connected to a specific practice that you're doing. Yeah, it's like, you can see it as like downloading an app onto your iPhone, downloading an app onto your OS. For the Medicine Buddha benefits of healing, you need the Medicine Buddha app on your phone. Transmission empowerment is very much like that. But Vajrasattva, Shakyamuni Buddha, Avalokiteshvara, Padmasambhava, these don't require an app. You don't need an empowerment to do it. You just can do the visualization, connecting with that master or that deity, and use the mantra of that deity, and that's sufficient. So in the case of Padmasambhava, Om Ahung Vajrapema Siddhi Hung. Om Ahung Vajrapema Siddhi, or Vajraguru Pema Siddhi Hung, is that mantra. That mantra, yeah. That mantra, in a way, no, I mean, not in a way, that mantra actually is the guru. That mantra actually is the deity. So by using that mantra, the nature of that deity, the wisdom of that deity begins to arise in your architecture. That's how a mantra actually works. The mantra has been blessed by deity. That's the only reason it has power. Like if I tell you to recite the words, the red book, okay? You just say again, the red book, the red book, the red book, because Carl Jung's red book is right here on my desk, the red book. The red book is just letters in the alphabet. Of course, it's still the nature of mind. There's power there, like with anything. But Om Ahung Vajraguru Pema Siddhi Hung is specifically been blessed by Padmasambhava, in turn, which is Avalokiteshvara. So by using the mantra, you gain the gaze of the deity. So in the Bardo, for example, in the Bardo you say Om Ahung Vajraguru Pema Siddhi Hung, or Om Namah Shivaya, or Amitofo, and instantaneously liberation can occur, because there's no body, there's no physical body, there's no density of the physical body, there's no time. So bang, recognition of the clear light happens. This is the power, this is the secret of mantra. So by doing the generation stage visualization of the pure illusory body, you imagine yourself as the deity, and you imagine yourself having the perception of the deity, having the omniscient perception of the deity. There's different ways that this can be visualized if you feel drawn to this. It's very powerful in the sense that it activates all the structures that are necessary and that are helpful for lucid dreaming and lucidity. So to visualize yourself as Guru Rinpoche, as Padmasambhava, and to visualize and see an entire retinue, a dimension of dakinis and male deities as well, and to imagine an infinitude of world systems where these blessings are emerging from you and reaching all sentient beings. This kind of practice very much puts you in the stream of the Guru Shakti, puts you in the stream of the transmission of the Guru, the blessings of the deities. So it's powerful. And by using and activating this, activating your imagination in this way, it transfers into dreams in which these kinds of visions appear, and then recognition as a result of that. Yeah. So in Natural Liberation, it gives you the Vajrasattva mantra. And if it's not in there, you can find it online. But definitely in the earlier section, it was in the preliminary sections, you visualize yourself as Vajrasattva, the deity is colored white. So that's an example of a generation stage practice as well. Yeah. The mantra for Avalokiteshvara is Om Mani Padme Hum. Sorry, Om Mani Padme Hum. And there are different forms of Avalokiteshvara. There's 1,000 arm Avalokiteshvara. There's the 4-armed Avalokiteshvara. So all of these visualizations, it's not that, this is not the worship of form. This is a merging of architecture, merging of consciousness architecture. Your node of individuated consciousness, through the visualization of the mandala and through the visualization of the deity through the mantra, your node conscious architecture is merging with a larger node of consciousness architecture. Yeah. You're downloading the 10th level Bodhisattva, an app of omniscience onto your OS. And that's really the power of the generation phase. Okay. So this is 149. Then let that divine body, a body that appears but is without an inherent nature, clearly arise as your mental object. Imagine it dissolving into your own body, and clearly imagine your own body being like that. When you meditate and train yourself in seeing the whole of the animate and inanimate world as being like that, you are adept in the practice of the pure body. During the transitional process, when the peaceful and wrathful bodies appear, you will surely be liberated. Thus, the main part of the practice of the transitional process of living is just this. And the preliminary practice for the transitional process of dreaming and of reality itself depends on this alone. So strive in this most diligently. In addition, the impure illusory body is crucial to the preliminary practice of the transitional process of becoming. Becoming refers to rebirth. So both of these illusory bodies are main practices of the transitional process, Bardo. This is the natural liberation of appearances through the instructions on the illusory body, Sambhya. So when you stabilize this practice of visualizing yourself as deity, and you meditate on the world being the display of the deity, and you reach the stabilization of realizing all things as illusory, realizing all things as the deity. So let's say this could be with a female deity or a male deity. You begin to experience that everything is her. The table is not the table is her. The chair, the cup is not the cup is her. The drink in the cup is her. Give rise to love and devotion, and the love and devotion that is arising is her. To continue in this is what you're going for. It's very powerful. Him, her, whatever the deity is. You'll find that the deity is not actually what it looks like. Padmasambhava is not actually a Tibetan man. You find that the deities themselves are operating systems within a larger operating system of consciousness that we call the Dharmakaya. So, and all of us, these localizations in space-time are apps within the infinite matrix of omniscient operating systems. Okay, so doing this visualization of the deity, actually mastering this alone liberates you in the bardo. There's only one practice or one deity that I used extensively in generation phase yoga, and that was the Junti mantra and the Junti sadhana. Junti's a manifestation of Avalokiteshvara, and Junti's practice, Junti's mantra, is revealed in the Mahajunti Sutra, which is from the Mahayana canon. The mantra is Namo Sadhana Samyak Sambuddha Kotinam Tadyata Om Jali Chuli Junti Swaha. And the mantra, that particular sutra says, if you recite it 800,000 times, you destroy your sins over innumerable lifetimes. Problem, not necessarily a problem, but the challenge is that that's a particularly long mantra. It takes about 3 seconds to recite if you do it fast. Other mantras, Om Mani Padme Hum, that's a second, right? Amitabha, half a second. So it's easier to get to 800,000 with those mantras. But in the case of this sutra, it says recite the mantra 800,000 times to destroy karmic obscurations that have been accumulated over innumerable lifetimes. The idea is that when you receive the grace of the guru or the touch of a master, Ramana Maharshi spoke about this. He said that the true power of the guru is the capacity to destroy the karmic obscurations, also called the vasanas, in another person. Basically, the power of God flowing through that individual is so strong that it's able to transfer it to another person and destroy their habitual tendencies. There's different kinds of Shakti, there's different kinds of transmission. But the true transmission, the true passing of the lamp is the descent of grace that destroys the vasanas, destroys the samskaras, destroys the habitual tendencies, and as a result, leads to awakening, opens awakening. The perception of duality, the perception of being a separate self, the I, me, mine, is a habitual tendency. The ignorance and the karmic formation are inextricably linked. So when the vasanas, when these subtle formations in the architecture are destroyed, bang, liberation happens right there. The subtle formations that prop up the edifice of a separate self, the karmas. So the true power of the guru Shakti, the guru principle, God, is that it's able to eviscerate these formations. So when the sutra says, do this mantra 800,000 times and your sins will be expired, it's referring to this. So you read this, initially you read the sutra and you're like, oh, this sounds ridiculous. Like I do this mantra and then, you know what, my bad deeds go away. How does that make any sense? That doesn't make any sense. It's because when you do this mantra 800,000 times or however many thousand times, it doesn't necessarily take that many recitations. The bodhisattvas, they know how human minds work. They give you carrots. Do this practice, do this cultivation. Free yourself from your past sins, from karma accumulated over many lifetimes. By doing this mantra. By doing the mantra, you gradually set up the conditions in the architecture, in the mind-body architecture, to receive the descent of grace, which destroys the vasanas. Vasanas are the habitual tendencies. Tendency to anger, tendency to hatred, tendency to self, I, me, mine making, tendency to grasping. Those tendencies, they have weight, they have gravity because of the presence of the past, because of all of your actions from previous existences. Why is it that it's difficult, if you've always been an angry person, why is it difficult to stop being angry? It's because the anger in your system has gravity. It has power. It has power because it has existed and enacted and manifested itself so many times in your system. So if you look over the long arc of hundreds of thousands of lives, there's certain things, certain qualities you have, certain patterns you have that you've repeated many times. Why do they repeat? It's because they actually have their own force. they actually have their own pull. The Guru Shakti destroys that pull. The blessing of the deity eviscerates that pull. That's the meaning of the grace of God frees you from sin. You don't need it or want it anymore. That's the freedom of grace. Jeez, what the heck was I saying? Okay. You do the mantra. They give you a big goal, 800,000. That's going to take like 3 years, okay? So if you're reciting it a good number of the day, let's say you dedicate 3 years to this mantra. And every time you say the mantra, because we're existing in time, every time you say the mantra, you get a little bit of your karma mitigated, a little bit of your karmic obscurations, vasanas, grasping. You get a little bit of it blown off. By the time you're at 800,000, even if it's not something that you're noticing or you may not even notice a change that's occurring yet. You may still be an angry person. You may still be a resentful person. The idea is that all of the necessary architecture for that mitigation and for that blessing to destroy those obscurations is there. And at some point that will come to fruition. It may come to fruition in this life. It may come to fruition in another life. But by giving a person a high number like 800,000, that's the idea. That those hours, those days, those weeks, those months, those years spent on that practice of repentance, and of doing that mantra, those are the positive karmic formations. Like those are like the guru particles that destroy the negative formations. So they say, for example, Bodhidharma stared at a wall for 9 years. The wall, you could see it as he was actually staring at a wall, but you could also see it metaphorically in the sense that he was staring at the wall of his mind for 9 years. Staring at the wall of his mind for 9 years, he unspooled all of his karma. Staring at the wall for 9 years, he spent 9 years in the Guru Shakti. Staring at the wall for 9 years, all of his karmic obscurations, all of his habitual tendencies were overturned. All of his karma was unspooled. Staring at the wall for 9 years, he emerges, he's a fully enlightened Buddha. There's stages to awakening. Fundamentally, every stage, every state, every experience and event is this Buddha nature, is this mind. So what is it that defines the stages? What defines the stages is the presence of the vasanas, of the habitual tendencies. A Buddha no longer has habitual tendencies. An initially awakened person still has habitual tendencies. Even a person who's halfway still has habitual tendencies. In Theravada, in the four path model, you don't lose lust and anger till the third stage of enlightenment. That's habitual tendency. At the fourth stage, you overcome afflictions. So this is the range. By doing this visualization, any visualization, excuse me, let's walk that back a little bit. The Junti mantra specifically is like its function is that this mitigation of karma. It's presented as that. That's actually what it does. So the grace fulfilling or the grace descending capacity of Avalokiteshvara, the capacity for these very high level operating systems of consciousness, because they're functioning at such high levels, they're able to mitigate these formations inside the architecture of sentient beings. So by doing the mantra, by doing the generation stage practice, you gain the blessing, the gaze of that deity, which destroys those formations. This is actually how Tantra works. The vehicle of secret mantra. What is the secret? There's many secrets. And this is certainly one of them. The secret is that by using the generation phase yoga and the completion stage yogas, you quantum leap over a process that takes innumerable lifetimes. By plugging in to the deity matrix, you gain the favor of the peaceful and wrathful manifestations, the Sambhogakaya. Someone else, another system like Theosophy will call these beings the lords of creation. You'll never hear that phrase used in Buddhism, but if reality is a learning school, if reality is a learning system, what intelligences maintain that system? That's the Sambhogakaya. If reality is this continuous dream of waking up, what is the principle that is organizing synchronicity across innumerable world systems for beings to actually awaken? Sambhogakaya, the peaceful and wrathful deities, lords of creation, the Avalokiteshvaras, the Shivas. They're not these actual four-armed beings or these actual thousand-armed beings. They are the meaning of the word we created man in our image. Our, it's plural. The deities are like an infinite, the deities, the Buddha matrix, they're, the texts say that the number of Buddhas that have passed into nirvana exceeds the number of grains of sand in the ocean. So there's an infinite matrix of super mind intelligences. They're one, but they're many. They're one in their individual capacities and individual functions. Sorry, they're many in their individual capacities and individual functions, but they're also one in their essence. The secret of secret mantra is the deity matrix, is aligning with the principle that has always been teaching us that infinitude of Buddhas, that infinitude of deities, of masters, is the form aspect of the guru principle. So by doing generation stage yoga and by using the mantra, you plug into the Buddha matrix. It's probably something that they should explain, but fortunately, I've never heard it explained. By training yourself and seeing the whole of an animate and inanimate world as being without inherent existence, i.e., an illusion, it is not that you are simply superimposing this upon the world. Instead, this practice merely acts as a catalyst for gaining insight into the nature of reality. Excuse me. It begins as an imaginary process, but it leads to a direct perception of reality. If you gain realization in this practice of the pure body, then during the transitional process following death, it is certain you will be liberated. Absolutely. If you do this in the waking state, you find yourself being able to do it in the dream state. You'll be able to do it in the bardo. It is best if you can be liberated when the peaceful emanations arise, and if not, then when the wrathful appearances arise. Either way, if you become adept in this practice, without doubt you will gain liberation in the transitional process following death. Therefore, this current practice of the pure illusory body can be regarded as a preliminary practice for other transitional process. Nighttime instructions on dreaming and the natural liberation of confusion. Here are three parts: A, apprehending the dream state; B, emanation and transformation; and C, dispelling obstacles to dreaming. Apprehending the dream state. Dreaming is induced by latent predisposition, so regard all daytime appearances as being like a dream and like an illusion. Acquire penetrating insight according to the statement in the Perfection of Wisdom. All phenomena are like a dream and like an illusion. In particular, it is crucial to practice the instructions on daytime appearances and the illusory body. At this time, powerfully imagine that your environment, city, house, companions, conversations, and activities are a dream. And even say out loud, this is a dream. Continually imagining that this is just a dream. Then when you go to bed in the evening, cultivate the spirit of awakening, bodhicitta, thinking, for the sake of all sentient beings throughout space, I shall practice the illusion like samadhi, and I shall achieve perfect Buddhahood. For that purpose, I shall train in dreaming. Then as you lie down, rest on your right shoulder with your head pointing north, your right hand pressed against your cheek and your left placed upon your thigh. Clearly imagine your body as your chosen deity. Your chosen deity may be Vajrasattva, Shakyamuni, which is the historical Buddha, or your own primary spiritual mentor, such as His Holiness the Dalai Lama, His Holiness Dujum Rinpoche, or His Holiness Karmapa. In this case, you could do Padmasambhava or any deity. This actually goes into what I was saying. Dujum Rinpoche has commented that the American notion of a tulku is different from the traditional Buddhist notion of a tulku. So tulku is reincarnated Lama, like they're the reincarnation of some luminary from the past, or the emanation of a deity. Americans have the sense that a tulku is a person who takes birth as a tulku and then lives his or her life serving others. Then as soon as that life is over, the person zips off to the next life and takes birth again. Then he or she lives that life as a tulku, dies, again, doesn't want to waste any time, and zips off to another life. It's hurry, 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 a rush hour traffic approach to tulkuhood. Trinley Norbu remarked that in contrast to that, the Buddhist view is that the Dharmakaya emanates effortlessly and immeasurably as Sambhogakayas, and Sambhogakayas manifest as innumerable Nirmanakayas. Like light rays emanating from the sun, all this occurs spontaneously and limitlessly. That view is very different from the out-breath, linear movement of one little tulku zipping through time, leapfrogging from one life to another. There are genuine tulkus who are pure, effortless emanations of the Sambhogakaya. Buddha Shakyamuni was a very great tulku, therefore Buddhas are simply emanations of the Sambhogakaya and the Dharmakaya. So the Sambhogakaya, like I said, is the retinue of peaceful and wrathful manifestations. The Dharmakaya is the expanse of reality in which these luminous intelligences, supermind manifestations exist. All of this is the Dharmakaya. Nothing that has ever happened was apart from reality. The Dharmakaya is a word for reality. Its realization is just it's that this recognition that it's always been reality. It's always been this mind beyond extremes. Realizing that is the definition of Dharmakaya. So the Sambhogakayas are in this realization. They are awake. They're not under the perception of being separate entities, subject to I, self, I, me, mine, and generating karmas out of ignorance. So the retinue of deities, the Sambhogakaya, the peaceful and wrathful manifestations, emanate Nirmanakayas, which are Buddhas, which are the Buddhas, the physical teachers, and in my opinion, beings that awaken or that are undergoing the awakening process. I think all beings, but I don't think I've seen this in a text yet. Yeah, I was speaking with Pia Giamasi, who's actually the translator of Nanhua Chin's Diamond Sutra and many other texts he's written, translating them into English. And I said, higher self is another word for Sambhogakaya. And she messaged me back. She's like, wow, never heard that. Never heard that one. Never heard that equating. And it's spot on. And there was a student that just had a higher self OBE, and he was in the Discord, and he's never had an OBE before. So listening to this series, he had his first out-of-body experience. Says higher self now is transported to a sphere of light in the center of the universe. And there's a recognition of that sphere of light as his true self, in the sense that that sphere of light is the dreamer of him. That is contact with the Sambhogakaya. The peaceful and wrathful manifestations are references to the specific qualities and appearances that these lords of the universe, masters of consciousness, take. But their fundamental forms are like this: spheres of light, geometrical patterns. Another secret of secret mantra. They say the logos is light. That light is comprised of the intelligence, the infinite intelligences of the Sambhogakaya. Like imagine an infinite, imagine all the seeds, the grains of sand, right? And each one of those grains of sand is a Buddha or a Bodhisattva. And each one of those grains of sand is a sphere, manifests or appears as a sphere. So the collective the innumerable conglomeration of these spheres, of these points of light, of these point consciousnesses comprises the luminosity of the logos. Yeah, this may not make sense. But in his case, in the OBE, he made contact with his node. In higher level OBEs, you arise as all the nodes. And that is called the Dharma Dhatu Praticca Samuppada, the interpenetration of dharmas, or the interpenetration of phenomena. Everything being everything, every node being every node. It refers to the 12th bhumi, or the 10th bhumi, the highest stage of the Bodhisattva in the flower ornament, Avatamsaka Sutra. So these are the types of things that become possible, realizable, experiential through this work. Yeah. You begin to see things in metaphor. You begin to see that certain statements refer not to what we think they refer as. So the Bible, there's this whole thing with Lucifer, right? And Lucifer is just the story that we get is that Lucifer defied God and wanted to be God himself. He didn't want to be, at the level of humans. But these phrases, "we are legion," it's the same. It's the same as the "we" of. It's the same as the "we" of Genesis. He who fell from what? Fell from outside time to inside time. Fell from the level of the Sambhogakaya to the level of time-space localization, which is what the Trinley Norbu referred to as emanation. So things are not necessarily what they appear as. We read things literally when they're actually referring to the mechanics of creation. So from my experience, that process was referring to the beginning of the dream of space-time and the beginning of the dream of localization. And the Luciferian aspect referred to the part of our consciousness that did not actually want to enter time. So that part of ourselves fell into this dream of localization, into this dream of ignorance, and therefore into this dream of sin, karma, self, cyclic existence. These types of things, they are revealed in revelation. They're revealed in these states. You emerge from them, you recall them, and then the matrix actually, the information, the knowledge appears in your mind instantaneously. So an example of this is in all of the world religions and traditions, they have the notion of the scales, where the virtues are weighed against the misvirtues, or the virtues are weighed against the sins, and that this happens in life review. The religious texts generally refer to this as like a judgment process, and that's referring to the wrathful appearances, right? So, but the scales are a metaphor. They're a metaphor for what? I'm about to this is what they're a metaphor for. There is a OBE where consciousness appeared actually as the planetary consciousness. So imagine being the mind of the planet, and that on the planet's operating system are the 7 billion apps that are each of us. The planetary consciousness is able to zoom in on any of the apps. So it zoomed in on me, and in a split second, I was assessed. Ryan as an incarnate was assessed. The scales, the scales are a representation of a scan of one's consciousness, where the wholesome qualities are weighed against the unwholesome qualities. Bang, in an instant. Like all of the qualities of the consciousness: dexterity, resilience, altruism, compassion, loving kindness, equanimity, discipline, motivation, all of the qualities that comprise the psyche, and all the negative qualities too: lust, anger, irritation, self-centeredness, all of, imagine like 100 of these, and they're all ranked from 1 to 100. So level of compassion from 1 to 100, or from 0 to 100. Degree of loving kindness in this, 0 to 100. Degree of compassion, 0 to 100. Degree of equanimity, 0 to 100. And all the metrics are revealed. No judgment. There was no judgment, in the sense that doesn't exist really in my consciousness. So that wasn't reflected in this state, or in this out-of-body experience. But the instantaneous contact with revelation was enough to say, oh, it makes sense. The part of the Earth life system is actually a consciousness development program. It's a consciousness development system. For the emanations of the original bodhisattvas to then become bodhisattvas themselves, and then manifest the bodhisattva vow, help sentient beings generate awakening, and help other sentient beings awaken, serve and help others. It's essentially this loop. Like, becoming is actually realizing what you have always been. And because of the dream of forgetfulness, this was necessary. Because of the fall into time and the fall into localization, it was possible to gain qualities and data that was not initially available. And those qualities and data in the higher data centers, the higher operating systems, then make it possible to execute and generate other reality games, and liberate sentient beings. Where was this? Oh yeah, back to the consciousness scan. So it's not like I got a piece of paper that said, hey, this is your situation. It was just bang, the knowledge was there. The scale is a representation of the knowledge, of the gnosis, of the qualities inherent in the incarnate at that moment in time. So the idea is that by the end of the incarnation, it goes back to this thing with the descent of the Guru Shakti and the descent of grace. The idea is that by the end of the incarnation, the unwholesome qualities have been healed, reduced, mitigated, released, let go of, and the positive qualities, the angels of your better nature, have been taken as far as they can go. That's why all the yoga systems, all the meditation and spiritual systems emphasize conduct. It's because the conduct is essential to development in the earth life system in order to actually, it's like by developing oneself in this way, you become more like God, more like the transcendent deity, more like the omniscient, boundless, compassionate Sambhogakayas. By becoming more like your highest nature, more like what you really, really are, you gain the favor and you gain the blessing from the angelic hierarchy or from the matrix of deity. Yeah. The secrets of creation become revealed. Yeah, by creation itself through these intelligences. Let me see what's in the comments. Oh wow, we went over the hour. Sorry about that. Yeah, so the awakening has an absolute and a relative. The absolute is that everything's perfection. The relative is that we still have habitual tendencies. So the absolute view is that habitual tendencies don't actually exist. But the relative view is that we may still be exhibiting and engaging in habitual tendency. So how is habitual tendency changed? It's changed through the absolute view. You see their illusory nature, and gradually with the blessings and with development, these things start to fall away. The more that the absolute, the more that non-duality, that the realization seeps into your bones, the more that you're beyond time, the more that everything that is happening within time becomes illusory. The reason that it's so hard to let go of anger is because we still take anger as real. And when we're in anger, it feels more real than other things. So it's the light of the absolute that eviscerates these notions. This is why the samadhi is emphasized, to attend to and notice Atman again, all the time, again and again and again and again and again. It's this at one-ment. It's this attending that draws the grace of the guru, the grace of the deities. So to summarize this, because we're going to end it here. Start to do a visualization practice. I'll share this in the Discord. I'll share it in the Discord, but it's something that it's like we make things more complicated than they need to be. Like, oh, like I don't really know how this works. Like, do I need permission to do this? Like, don't wait for permission. Don't wait to have it all figured out. Just start trying. to start visualizing yourself as Buddha falling asleep, or as Padmasambhava, or as Avalokiteshvara, or as a female deity. You can use Tara. You could even use the Virgin Mary if that's closer to you. That's actually very powerful. So any female and male deity, and the mantra, use the mantra in these meditations and as you're falling asleep, and this will really superpower this entire work vastly. So it's actually it's actually one of the, it really is one of the, it really is a cheat code. Sam from Talking to Higher Self, he did this every time he went to sleep, and imagined himself as Guru Rinpoche, as Padmasambhava, and he's one of 2 people that I know, I guess 3, that is in clear light sleep every night, or is lucid every night. So how did it happen to him? He actually shared it with me personally. He did this for many years, and then one night a master appeared in the room, touched his forehead, and then bang, from that point on, he had continuous lucid dreams. That is, nothing actually is necessarily what it appears to be. In our perception, it's like, oh, this external being appeared and touched my forehead, and then this faculty activated. It's not that an external being actually appeared and did that, in my opinion. It's just that the higher self, the Sambhogakaya, manifests as that. An aspect of your higher nature manifests as that. The actual opening of that function in your consciousness manifests as that experience. Let me say that again. The appearance of that is the representation of that function in your consciousness being activated. Or it actually was a deity that came and touched his forehead and gave him a blessing. We don't. It was. I didn't experience it through his shoes, so I can't know for sure. But yeah, in my experiences of this stuff, the deities have actually told me that. So I'm speaking from that point. This is actually a representation of this particular process. I'm not actually a blonde woman. We're not actually in a spaceship right now. You see? Experiences in these higher states, in these higher dimensions, they're structured, word for word, she said, experiences must be structured and organized in ways that are intelligible and memorable to perceiving consciousness units. I'm not a blonde woman. We're not actually in a spaceship. What is appearing in many cases is actually the representation of a process, of an activation, of something changing within the architecture of one's being. But then in many cases, you're actually also dealing with other beings and other realities and experiences. So it's not necessarily one. It's not necessarily one or the other. Depends on the situation. So yeah, because I had OBEs to places, and then later, had OBEs to external physical places, and then things happened that verified that what had occurred there actually did occur there. So it's not always just manifestations of your own structures. So, all right. Hope you enjoyed all of this. This was good. So stop the recording now.